In this Elegant Themes Divi tutorial, I'm going to show you step by step how I managed to create this layout. And this layout is from a website, Beats by Dre UK. So as you can see, this is nice, it's simple and very clean. So we're going to do this Divi layout using the Divi Builder. And in this Divi tutorial, I'll be showing you step by step how to do this. Now, what I will be doing as well is I'll be giving away this layout. So let me show you what I managed to recreate. So if I come over here, we can see that this is our version. So as I scroll down, you can see here that we're still maintaining this clean layout. And then over here, I chose a different image to go with this. We also have this image right here. And also we have the icons and also the footer area. So this is what we'll be redesigning, and this Divi theme, I'll be also giving it away. I will leave a link to this layout in the comments box below, so you can download it and use it whenever you want in your designs. And by the way, these images that I'm using, they're free because they are from pexels.com. This is an online platform where you can download pictures which you can use for free. Okay, so as you can see, this layout is pretty much similar to what we have here. So we're trying to recreate this, but we'll be using Divi. Okay, so I'm really happy to start this page design. So we're going to be using the Divi Builder, as I mentioned. And also, if you want to learn how to design websites using Divi, I have a course. It has a 50% discount at the moment. So the link to that again is in the description below. Today's tutorial is made possible by divicake.com. Check out their huge selection of Divi themes, layouts, and plugins. The link to that is in the description below. Right, so I'm going to come over here now to my dashboard, and we are going to create a brand new page. So I'm going to come over here to Pages and click on Add New. Now let's call this page Beats Remake. But of course, you can call your page whatever you want. Great, so I'm going to click now on Use the Divi Builder, and then we're going to go straight to the Visual Builder. Now, you may be wondering how I managed to create that page that I have, that main image that I have on the page. So before we can actually go in and start creating that page, let me show you how I did it in Photoshop. So I'm going to switch over now to Photoshop, and as you can see, everything started off with a basic image from Pixabay. Right? So this is just an image of this lady. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to start off with this image, and this was straight from Pixabay. And then after we've added all the graphics and I've done all the image manipulation, it's going to look like this. So as you can see, this is now closer to what we have on the Beats by Dre main page. Okay, so I'm just going to disable that layer. So let's get started. So right now I'm going to press Command J to duplicate that layer. The reason why we're duplicating this layer is so that if I make a mistake on that, I can always go back and make changes to it. Okay, so moving on, we're going to add a brand new layer. So I'm going to click on that. Now, making sure my foreground color here is black, we are going to draw some lines here in front of this lady. So I'm just going to make my brush a bit smaller by clicking the left bracket key. And then I'm just going to draw just like that. And another one here on the top, just like that. Okay. Now it's time to add another layer. So I'm going to click this layer icon to add a new layer, but this time we need to draw a white line. So making sure your foreground color is white like that. Make my brush a bit smaller. And now we're going to draw a line that goes across just like that. Great. Okay, so now that we have our line, we need to paint it off because it's covering the face here. So to do that, we need to add a layer mask. So I'm going to click here on the layer mask, and then we're going to start painting. So as you can see, the moment I start painting, we're now revealing what we have on the bottom layer, and this is exactly what we want. Okay, that's looking great. Right, so don't worry if this is not perfect. It just needs to be abstract. Okay, so I'm going to hit Command T to get the transform tool and make this slightly smaller. Okay, I'm just minimizing this. Okay, so that looks great now. Right, so now it's time to move on to the next layer. So I'm going to come to the layer below. And again, as we did to the top layer, we're going to add a layer mask. So I'm going to click here on the layer mask. And then we're going to start painting away some of these lines here, like that. Okay, so as you can see, this is coming to life now. Okay, so that looks great. So the next thing we need to do now is to merge all these three layers into one layer. Okay, and to merge them, first select them and then press Shift Command E. So as you can see, everything is now all merged into one layer, which is great. Now, the next thing we need to do is to make this image black and white. So to do that, you hit Shift Command U. So now that makes it black and white. So the next stage now is to add color to it. So I'm just going to hit Command J to duplicate that one more time. And then the next command I'm going to use is Command U. So now it's time to colorize this. So make sure you click here where it says colorize. Now we have color to this. Great. So we need to make it more red. So I'm just going to click this saturation slider all the way up until I get it to look red. So that is nice. It's beautiful. I'm just going to click OK. And that is how I created my main image. Okay, so now we're done with Photoshop. But before I go in and start adding all my images to the Divi Builder, I would like to say as well, if you want to learn how to put your website together, your graphics, and customize your images, resize them, make them look great, as I'm doing right now, I have a course specifically for web designers. So if you want to learn how to design your graphics for the web, this course is ideal for you. And the link to that course as well is in the show notes below. This course is only $97. And if you purchase that, I'll be adding even more tutorials to it. So this will just take your designs to the next level. So check it out. Right, so I'm done now in Photoshop. All I have to do is to save this image. So I'm just going to save. And we want to make sure that we're saving this at the right size and at the right format. So right now it's on JPEG. That's exactly what we need. Now, when it comes to the quality here, I normally set this at 80%. Okay, now look at our file size. This is nice and manageable. Excellent. Right, so I've already saved my image. I'm just going to cancel this. And then I am just going to get out of Photoshop. Now, we are back to Divi. Okay, so let's continue with our Divi tutorial. So I'm going to come over here and click on Build from Scratch because we want to build this right from the beginning. So I'm going to click that. So I'm going to close this for now. So my first section I'm going to need is a full width section. So I'm going to click this plus button here, click on full width. Great. So now that I have this full width, I have several options here. I'm going to go with full width header. So I'm going to select that. Right. Now that I have the header, over here, I can start adding all my text. So instead of saying, in fact, you know what? I'll be switching between these two websites so I can see what I'm adding. So right now we need the title, but of course, we're not going to use Divi Decade Collection. So I'm just going to come over here and just say Mac headphones. Okay, that should do. Right, so what's the next thing I need to do? I need to add this text here. So that's a subheading. So I'm just going to say made to last. And then for the buttons, so for button 1, it says explore. And then the other one says buy. Okay, so here I'm just going to say explore. And on button 2, I'm just going to say buy now. Excellent. So now we have our 2 buttons. So moving on over here now, we're going to need an image. This tiny little image right here. So let's go ahead and add it. So I'm going to get rid of all this text and add my image. In fact, before I do that, let me see. Okay, I need a sentence above this little image. So let me just add some text on that. Now to do that, I'm just going to come over here to Lorem 2 because I prefer using this when it comes to using some dummy text. Okay, so I'm just going to copy some text over here and paste it. Right, so it's the text first and then the image. Right, so let's add our image by clicking on Add Media. And I already have my image here in the media library. So let me just find that image. Okay, so the images of this guy here with the guitar. Great, I'm going to click on Select. So now we have our image. That's looking good. So what we need to do next is to add our main image. So I'm going to come over here on the 3rd tab to add my image. My image is in the media library. And I'm just going to select it. And here it is. Upload an image. And now we have this beautiful image in the background. The next thing I need to do now is to save and delete that section that I have on the top. So I'm going to say Save Changes. And then I'm going to delete this because I don't need this anymore. Now let's go back in here and make this fill the whole page. So over here on Design, I'm going to click on Layout. and then make it full screen. Great. So now everything is filling up the whole page. Now it's time to go in and start making my minor and finer adjustments. So I'm going to start over here with the title, the main title. I'm going to click this paintbrush icon to go directly to this text. So I'm going to make it bigger. Of course, we don't want to make it too big. So let's leave it at 50 and then come over here to regular and set this to ultra bold. Okay, moving on to the next one, made to last. So here, let's just go back to the beat site and see how big it is. Okay, it's not too bad. And over here as well, this is meant to be all caps. So let's fix that. Great. Now moving on to the next item. Again, this is going to be all caps, the subhead text. Okay, and then I'm going to make it slightly bigger. Okay, I think I like it at maybe 22. Add some line height to it. And then I am going to make it bold. Great, so that's looking good. Next, I'm going to come over here and let's also adjust our text. Let's see how big it is. Okay, it's quite small actually. So I'm just going to make sure that it's set to, let's say, 13. And we just will need to add some line height to this. Okay, let's set it at 2.7. So that's looking good. Now it's time to go in and make some adjustments to our buttons. So I'm going to start off with the first one here. And then to activate all my settings for my button, I'm going to click on Use Custom Styles for button 1. And let me just take a look here and see how big it is. So it's quite small actually, the text. Right, so we're going to make the size a bit smaller. And by the way, I'm not just copying this website and make it look exactly like the Beats Dre. I mean, I'm just using the Beats by Dre as some sort of inspiration and get it quite as close to that as possible without actually copying everything. Right, so my text is okay. I'm going to come over here. Border width is fine at 2. In fact, let's see if we can set this to 1. Right, it's a bit too thin, but let's go with that. Okay, the next thing we're going to do now is to sort out my border radius. So I'm going to set this to about 50 to achieve this pill. So that's looking good. I really like that. Right, so I have that done now. So on the top here for button 1, I'm going to right click, copy button 1 styles, and then I'm going to go to button 2, activate use custom styles for button, and then I'm going to paste my button styles. Okay, so now these buttons look the same, but one of them needs to have this red color here. Okay, so let's come back over here. Let's add our background color. So our text color is fine at white. So I'm going to click here to add my color. And let's make it a bit brighter so you can stand out from this image. Okay, so that's looking fine now. The only thing we need to do now is to just make sure that this is the same color as border width. So I'm going to come over here and I'm just going to paste it in here. Okay, so now that looks okay and everything seems like it's the same size. Great. So I'm going to click I'm going to click on save. Right. Okay. So I really like how it's looking now. That looks brilliant. And let's take a look here as well. So it's not too far. So that's how we create the first section. Okay. Now let's move on to the next section. So what do we need here for the next section? Let's just scroll down. So this is our featured products and we're going to need a row. Okay. So let's go ahead and do that. So back over here, we are going to click this plus button to add another row. And this time it's going to be a regular row. Okay, it's going to have 3 columns. And in these columns, we are going to have some blurbs. So I'm going to select blurb. Great. So let's do some work on this. So if I come back over here, so this is the title of the actual product. Okay, so we're just going to call these product 1, product 2, product 3. So I'm just going to type that. Product 1. Okay, are these centered? Let me just have a look again. Yes, it's centered and then it has some text which says 6 colors. Okay, right. So now that I have my title, here we're just going to say 6 colors like that. Okay, so now that we have that, let's come over here to image and icon because we need to change our image. I'm going to delete this or just click anywhere in that. And then I'm going to go to my library and look for my image, for my product images. So my images are going to be headphones. So I'm going to start off here with this first one, upload an image. And by the way, these images, they were resized in Photoshop. So you do need to make sure that all your images that you use are the same size. Otherwise, you're going to have inconsistencies. Right, so now that I have this in place, let's go ahead and customize this. So I'm going to come over here to design, and then I'm going to start with my text. So over here on the text, I'm just going to make sure it's all centered. So that looks much better now already. Great, so this text which says 6 colors, let's go in and adjust the size because right now it's a bit too big. So reduce that to about, let's say 12. So let's see if it's all caps here. In fact, it's not all caps. So let's go ahead and fix that. So back over here where it says 6 colors, let's just change that. That looks much better actually. Right, so I'm going to go now and save. So that's our first product. Now for this to really stand out and make it look like how it is here on the Beats website, I'm going to add a color to the section. So I'm going to come over here, click on this gear icon to go into the section settings, background, and I'm going to go ahead and add my background color. Right, so this is going to be a light gray. So I'm just going to slide until I get my desired gray. And I think right here is the best. Okay, I'm going to go with that and save. Now it's time to make this actual product all white. So I'm going to come back into here, into my module settings, click on background, and I'm going to add my background color, make it white. So now you see everything is all white and that's looking great. So there's one problem that we have here, and that is we need to add some padding to this, especially to the bottom. So I'm going to search here on the top for padding. And then for the padding bottom, we're going to start off, let's say 40. Okay, maybe we might need to add a bit more, give it a bit more breathing space. All right, I'll go with 60. I like that. I'm going to go ahead now and save. So the next thing we're going to do now is to come into our row settings and make our custom size. So I'm going to come over here to sizing and click on use custom width. Now for this, I'm going to use a percentage. So I'm going to say, let's start off with, let's say 70%. See how that looks. But we can always go in and make some changes. So I'm going to go with 70% here and equalize column heights. And we're also going to activate the gutter width and set this to 2. Okay, so that means we won't have too much space between these products. So I'm going to go now and save. I think I'm happy with that. So the next stage now is to clone this. So I'm going to hit Command C or Control C to copy, and then I'm just going to paste it over here. Now the reason why I'm doing this is it just makes things easier for me to add my products. Okay, so now this is going to be called product 2, and this is going to be product 3. Great. So all I have to do now is to go into each and every one of these and change my images. So I'm going to click here, add my image. So this time it's going to be an image of this headphone, upload an image, save that. Move on to the next one. Go into the settings, image and icon, and then I'm going to add my third one, which is the Sennheiser headphones. Right, so that's looking great. I'm going to go ahead now and save. So as you can see, our layout is coming to shape now, and it's really cool. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead now and add a new row. And this row now is going to have my page titles. So I'm going to search for my text module and select it. And let's see what it says on the Beats website. So it's featured products. So that's what we need to add here as our title. So I'm just going to type it in, and we're going to make sure that this is a heading. So let's make these headings heading 2. Right. Okay. So that's looking much better. And now it's time to go into the design and make sure that this is customized. So first of all, in fact, I'm in the wrong tab. I need to be in the heading text. So this is H2. So let's make this bold. So instead of having it as regular, I'm going to set it to bold. And we're going to make the size slightly bigger. Let's make it 38. Great. So let's center it as well. And then let's save. Okay, so I'm going to drag this to the top because this is the title for our section. Okay, great. So as you can see now, it's looking good. And then on the top here, I'm just going to add some spacing. So let's add 100 just to give it a bit of breathing space there on the top. Right, so this is looking good. We've added all that now. The next thing is to add this layout right here. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to come back over here, and I would prefer to have this in its own row. Okay, so I'm going to click this plus button here, add a regular section, and this time the layout I'm going to need is, let's see, 1/3, 2/3. So let's go with this. In fact, let me take a look again, see what this looks like. So this is about, oh yeah, so we are going to need about 2/4 So let's try that. So we have it here, 2/4. Great. So the first one here is going to be blank. So let's leave it as it is. And let's move on to the next one. And in this one, we're going to need some modules, and let's see what we're going to need here. So we're going to need some text and also 2 buttons. So let's do that. Okay, so text module. Start off with that. I'm going to add that. So make it pop and some description text. Great. So let's call this make it pop. And then we're going to have some text here to describe it. And let's make this heading 2 or heading 3. I think heading 3 works better. Great. Okay, so we have our heading 3. We have our description text. So the next thing we're going to need is the buttons. So let's customize this as well. So I'm going to come over here to design heading text. So we're going to come over here to heading 3. Let's increase the size a bit. In fact, let's make it bold. Great. So let's take a look here at the size. Oh, it's actually quite big. Okay. So all caps. Let's increase the size. I think that will work. Okay, so that's looking good. Let's go ahead and save. Now, we're also going to need a background color here onto this section, and the background color needs to look the same as this one. So to make it quick, I'm just going to right click, copy section styles. And then over here, I'm going to right click on this area and paste section style. So as you can see now, I've added my same background color, and that looks great. Over here, I'm going to add my image module. I'm going to select it, and the image I need is in my library. So I'm going to click here, click the image library, and select my image like that. Great. So my image is in. Let's save. Right. So as before, this needs to be the same size. So this is about 70%, I think. So I'm going to right click, copy row styles, back over here, right click, paste row styles. Boom. So that's looking much better now. Okay, so we have some work to do in this text module. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to click here on the module settings, and we need to add a background color to this. Okay, so we're really going to add a dark gray, really dark gray, like that. Okay, and as you can see, we can't read what's inside. So let's come over here to our text and change our text color. So I'm going to click this eyedropper tool and choose my color. Right, so that's working. And we also need our color for our heading. So again, I'm just going to do the same thing. Choose my color. There we go. Okay, that's better. So I've got my color selected. And the next problem now that we have is this text is close to the edge. So we need to add some padding. Right, so over here on the top, we're going to search for padding, and we need to add our padding both to the top, bottom, left, and right. So let's start with 40. Okay, that's not too bad actually. I'm going to save this. And the next thing I'm going to do, as you can see, we have some gaps here between our columns. So we need to adjust that. So I'm going to come back over here on design, click on where do we need to go? I think it's sizing. Yes, it is. Right, so for the gutter width, I'm going to set this to 1. Okay, now we can see there's no more spaces between that. That's great. Let's save that, and now it's time to add our buttons. So I'm going to click this plus button here and search for my button module, just like that. So we are going to need 2 of these. So I'm just going to work on one of them, and then I'll add the other one later. So again, it's going to be explore and buy now. Okay, so explore our link. For now, I'm just going to add a blank link. Click on design, button, custom styles for button, and change the size. Make it 18, I think. That should work fine. Now, before I continue, I might as well add a background color to this because this is actually quite difficult because this needs to be white. So I might as well add my background color. So I'm going to go into my row settings, background, and this is going to be background 2. Okay, so let's add our color. So I think it's 21, 21, 21. Like that. So as you can see, everything now all matches up. Okay, great. So I'm going to save this. And then I'm going to go back here into my module settings, design, button, and we're going to continue. So this time we need our button text color to be white. So we might as well fix that. Our border width needs to be 1. I'm going to set that to 1. Our text is fine. In fact, we might need to reduce it a little bit. So let's do that. Okay, let's go with 17. Right. Okay, so now we need to make this button look like a pill. So to do that, it's going to be the border radius. So around 55, 56 should be fine. And maybe we might add a bit of letter spacing here. Right, so 2 looks great. And by the way, if you want to add some icons, you can also do that by coming over here to this icon area, okay? And the hover state as well. If you want to add your hover state, you can always come in here and add, your radius. Okay, so right now, as you can see, as I hover, the color here is not working. So hover border color, let's add this color and make it white. Okay, so now it's fine. Great. So the next thing we need to do is to go to the spacing because as you can see, this is way too close to the edge. So I'm going to come over here to custom padding and I'm just going to dial in. In fact, that's for the button. Let's reset that. In fact, we may need to do some work here. Okay, so I'm going to add some padding to the left and right. Let's start with 20. Okay, let's go 30. Okay, that looks better. I think I like that. And for the padding, okay, we got 0. No, that doesn't look good. So let's try 10. That's a bit too much. Okay, so let's try 5, maybe 4. I know it's a slight difference, but okay, that looks fine. I'm happy with that. Now let's come over here to the margin and just drag this until everything lines up. So I think 40 is fine. So let's go ahead now and save. Great. So all we have to do now is to duplicate this and make some adjustments to it. Okay, so I'm going to go in one more time, go into my margins, and let's add margin top so we can separate the buttons like that. And the bottom one needs to have a color to it. So let's add some color to that. So I'm going to come over here to design, go into the button, and this time for our background color, I'm just going to choose this red. And we are going to use the same red for the border. So I'm going to copy it. And then for my border here, there we go. So that looks great. And then all we have to do on the hover, you can see here the color is red. So let's change that. So hover, border color, red. Great. So now if I hover over it, it looks okay. And finally, what we need to do is to change the title of that button. So I think it says buy now. So I'm going to come over here, click text, and then let's call this buy now. Great. So our website is taking shape. I'm going to save this. So now I'm happy with that section. And if we take a look at what we've done so far, it's not bad actually. Right. Let's move on and let's add another row by clicking this plus button. And this time we're going to need 3 columns. Okay. Right. So I'm just going to close this for now and let's take a look at what is happening here on the Beats by Dre website. Okay. So we need to have these 2 images here. Okay. With the products. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay. Back over here to our website. I'm going to add some products, but you know what? Instead of recreating them, I'm just going to copy them from here. So I'm going to hit Command C or Control C on a PC. And then over here, paste that. paste that. And for our rows, they need to have the same style. So I'm going to copy row styles, come back over here, right click, paste row styles. Okay, so we have a slight problem here because our gutter width is making this seem like it's one main item. So let's go ahead and fix that. So I'm going to come over here to the gear icon, click on design. In fact, to make things even easier, you can just type in gutter and it shows you the gutter width. Okay, so 2 looks great. Okay, product 7, and this could be product 8. So what we're going to do here is we're going to add different products. Okay, so I'm going to come into this area here on the settings and image and icon, and we're going to change our image. Right, so the image I'm going to use now is this watch, upload an image. This is so that, things just look slightly different. Okay, so I'm going to save this, come over here, do the same thing. I'm going to go to image and icon and change my image. And this time I'm going to add a digital SLR camera. Select that, upload an image. Great. So now this looks slightly different. Great. So let's go ahead and save. And now it's time to use negative margins because this is how we get to move this up there. And let me show you how it looks here on the Beats website. So you can see here that these products are now moved up. So they're actually up in this area. So that's what we need to recreate. Okay. So I'm going to go into my row settings. Okay. Let me search for margin. There we go. So margin top is what we need. So by using this slider, I'm just going to dial in the desired height. So I'm just going to keep going until I'm happy with the height that I need. And if you're impatient, just type it in here. So let's type in 220. Take a look. Right, it's not high enough. So I'm going to say 420. Double that. Okay, that looks even much better. Great. So I'm happy with the height now. I'm going to save. Take a look at that. That looks beautiful. Okay, so that is how you move your images up. And as you can see, if we take a look here at the beats, it's actually quite close. And as I mentioned, we're not going to copy this exactly as it is. Okay, we just want to make it quite close and make it slightly different. Okay, so now that we have this, it's time now to add another section. So as you can see here, my plus button for the add section is hiding. I'm going to go here into expand settings and click on the wireframe view. Okay. And then this is where I can just add my section, click on regular, and then just close that and then go back to my view. Okay. So right now I'm taking a look at this and seeing if this looks great on my mobile device. And you know what? It looks fantastic. Look at that. We may need to do some adjustments over here, but that's not a big deal. But overall, this looks fantastic. Great. Okay, so I'm going to switch back over here to my desktop view. And in fact, you know what? Let me just fix this right away. I'm going to go into my module settings and search for margin because we just need to add a margin to the bottom. So my desktop is fine. I just need to come over here and set it for my tablet. Okay, let's say 3%. Let's see how that looks. Okay, 3% is not enough. Try 5. Okay, let's go for 10%. Okay, so now the button is not too close to the image, which is great. And then over here for the smartphone, take a look. That is perfect. Okay, so this is how you go in and do your customizations when it comes to the different views. So back over here to my desktop, I have my section added. In fact, let me just save this. Okay, so my section is added here. Let's take a look at the site and see what we need to add. So we need 2/3, 1/3, I think, for this. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to come back over here. Click this plus button to add our row. So we say 2/3, 1/3. Okay, so I'm going to select 2/3, 1/3 like that. So over here, I'm going to need my image. Select that. So let's add our image right away. My image is my media library. So I'm going to select this image of this lady here, upload an image. Okay, I'm going to save. Now, I want to make sure that my background for my section is the same color as what I have here. So again, as I did before, I'm going to right click, copy section styles, and then I'm going to paste my section styles here like that. Great. And then over here, I need to add a text module, and it's going to have a button inside it. So it's pretty much going to look close to this. Okay. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm just going to clone this and see if I can pull it off. Right. Okay. So that looks fine. In fact, you know what? What we need here is a call to action. So I'm going to click this plus button and search for my call to action. Okay. Because if we try to add the button, we won't have enough space to add our button. And because we want this to look very close to that, if we try to add the color to this to the column of the row, that wouldn't work either because we want to move this freely. Okay, so let's go back over here, and we're going to make sure the background is white and the text is gray. So let's fix that. So I'm going to come over here and make this all caps, align left. And let's increase the size and make it bold. Great. Okay. Now the text also needs some adjustments. So I'm going to come over here and align left. I think the size looks fine as it is. Okay. And I'm going to reduce the content because there's quite a lot of information there. So let's get rid of some of it. Okay, but this, of course, this is dummy text. You can go in and add this text that suits your design. Okay, so for the button URL, I'm just going to add a blank link so that my button shows, and that looks great already. So I like that. So now what we need to do is to customize this button and make it look like a pill. So I'm going to come over here, use custom styles for button, and the size. Let's see how big it is here. Okay, it's quite small actually. So let's reduce this to about, let's say 17, maybe even 16. Okay, 15 will do. Right, okay. Border width, let's set this to 1. And we're going to add a color to that, to the border, because the whole thing is going to be red. And then I'm going to come over here, add my background color, and then my border radius. Let's just bump this up to about 50. In fact, until you see this looking like a pill, you're good to go. Right, so I'm really happy with that button. I'm going to go ahead now and save, and then I need to move this. So I need to go back again. I shouldn't have gone out. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my module settings, change my background color, and this time this is going to be white, and my text needs to be dark. Okay, so I'm going to go to design, text. So right now it's set to light. Let's set it to dark. Great. So now we can read it, and that's exactly what we need. Okay, so let's save this. Oops. You see what has happened here? Our button text is not easy to read, so let's fix that before we move away from this. Okay, so I'm going to click here on this brush tool, and for our color, text color, white. Okay, that looks much better now. And I may want to add some letter spacing. I think 1 was fine. Okay, so I'm happy with that now. Now it's time to move it around. So I think the best thing to do here before we start doing that is to make sure that our rows are the same size. So I'm going to right click here, copy row styles, and paste them again. Great. Yeah, because it just saves me time going back and forth designing this. Okay, so now let's go into my module settings. So to get that part moved around, we need to use margins. Okay, so we're going to play around with this, add some margin top by just dragging this like that. So you just have to do this until you are happy with the positioning. And then let's try left. Okay, so as you can see, as I'm adding my left, this is also working. And I'm also going to do the right till I get the right size. So I think that looks nice. Great. All right, so I'm pretty happy with that. I'm going to save. So I have it pretty much close, but you can always go in and make some fine tuning. So I'm just going to do that one more time. So over here to the right, I'm just going to add a bit more. Yeah, I think that works fine. I'm going to save. Great, so that's looking good. Now it's time to go to the featured section. Okay, so before we continue, there's a few things I need to point out here. Now, when it comes to the actual fonts that I've used here, I've defined these already in the theme settings. So that's what you want to do, because if you go in and customize these fonts as you're building the site, this will take you a very long time. So this is what you need to do. Okay, so moving on. This looks great. So what we need to do now is to create the next section. And so let's take a look here again and see what section we need to add. So we've done this. So what we're going to do here is we're not going to do the other one, because basically it's just a repeat of this. So we're going to do away with that. So what I'm referring to here is this one right here, because as you can see, this is just the top version, but flipped the other way around. So we are not going to do this one. Okay, so our next section here is going to be the product support. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to click here, and what we may need to do is to add a new section, because I think it works better that way. Right, so right now I don't have access to my plus button. Again, it's in the way. The expand settings is in the way. So I'm going to expand it and then come over here to the wireframe mode and then add my section. So I'm going to click this plus button here. And this is going to be a regular section. And I'm just going to close this for now and go back to my front end view. Okay, so now that we have this in place, I'm going to click this plus button and add our section. So the first one here is going to have our title. So I'm just going to search for my text module like that. Okay, so I'm just going to close this. In fact, you know what I should have done is to just copy this one right here, because it works better that way. Let's do that. So I'm going to copy and then over here, paste it. Great. And then I'm just going to move this top one here to the bottom. And let's customize this. So we need to have 4 icons, I think. Yes, so we need to have 4 icons. So let's go in and fix that. Right, so I'm going to come over here to my column structure and then choose 4, just like that. So the first one here, of course, has the text module. Let's delete that and let's start adding our images. So I'm going to click this plus button, add my first image, select my module, and then I'm going to choose my icon. So I'm going to start with this one here, upload image. And then I'm going to save. So as you can see, these icons are already fine. In fact, I can go in and make some minor adjustments. So let me center it first. So I'm going to come over here to design, alignment. I'm going to center it and go into sizing because they look a bit too big. Make it maybe even 50% like that and center it. Okay, so that looks good. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to just copy and paste these over here. Now, the reason why I'm doing this is because all the settings are in each one of them already. So all I have to do now is to go in and change the images. Right, so I'm going to come in here and go to my library, choose my second icon, like that, save it, move on to the next one, go into the settings, choose my icon, and this time it's going to be this chat one. Upload an image, save that, and now it's time to add my final one. I'm going to delete this, go to my media library, and add my last icon. Great. And of course, if you want to move these around, you can just drag these over and change the positioning of all these. Right. So the next thing we need to do now is to add color to this section. So let's come over here and copy my section styles. So I'm going to right click and copy section styles, come all the way down here, right click and paste section styles. Great. So now our colors are consistent. The next thing we're going to do is to go into the row settings. In fact, let's take a look here on the Beats website, what it looks like. Okay, so it's this area here that needs to be white. Let's go ahead and fix that. So I'm going to go in here and let's go into our row settings, click on background, and we need to make this white just like that. So that's looking closer to what we have. Right, so the next thing we need to do is to add some padding. So I'm going to add some padding on the left and the right, and it needs to be equal sizing. So let's start by adding, let's say 10%. Actually, I think I like that. 10% looks great. Click on save and let's add our text that needs to go below this image icon. Right, so I'm going to click this plus button, search for my text module, select it, and we need to give them titles, don't we? Right, so support home, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so let's add our titles. So let's call this support home. Right, so I'm going to come over here to design, go directly and make my changes. So first of all, it needs to be centered. Click that, center it, and then I'm going to make it all caps. And for my font weight, I need to use regular. In fact, let's make it light. That's even better. Okay, I'm going to make the size a bit smaller because this does not need to be like all up in your face like that. So right, let me save it. Great. So all I have to do now is to copy it and paste it over here. Okay, just like that. Just like that, and then give them different titles. And for this one here, let's call this easy updates. So I'm just giving these random names. Right, so move on to the next one. Here we can say 24/7 chat. Okay, and then finally, right, let's just call this great support. I'm running out of ideas now. Right, okay, I'm going to save this. So that's our section. It's done. Great. Now, if you want to link these to different places of the website, you can always go in and make it a link. So let me just show you quickly how to do that. So if I go here back into my module settings, just highlight the text, click this chain icon, and then add your URL to where you want it to be. Okay, so that's how easy it is to make it a hyperlink. Okay, so let's take a look here on the Beats website and see what we need to do next. So this is our call to action. Right, so again, I want to have this on its own section. So let's duplicate this, make things easier. Right, so we need to change this column structure and make it one column. And then we need to delete all these. And let's add our email opt-in. Okay, great. So now we have our email opt-in. Take a look here, the structure. Okay, so we have some text here. So let's just go over to Lorem, copy some text. So we're going to paste our text in here where it says easy updates, like that. And then, in fact, what we could do, let's check the positioning of this. Oh, in fact, it doesn't matter because all this is going to be in the white background. Okay, great. Right, so as you can see, the way this looks, it's not too close to what we need it to be. So let's just save this for now and let's delete these modules. Right, now let's go in and fix this. So I'm going to click here on this gear icon and we're going to go into design, layout. So on the layout here, we can actually align these the way we want. So let me click here on this drop down. So what we need is the form on the bottom. Right, so let's take a look. Yes, so that's how I want it. So that's great. Right, so in this case, we don't need the first name and we also don't need the last name. So I'm going to disable those. But before I do that, I'm just going to come over here to the button and click on use custom styles for button. And our text size, I'm going to leave it as it is because this looks quite big. So the text size of 20 is fine, unlike the earlier buttons that we used. Right, so over here on the background color, I'm just going to use our red that we've been using. And for my border width, I'm just going to use the same red as well. But on the border radius now, we need the button to look like a pill, like that. And for the letter spacing, let me see. Okay, in fact, I'll just leave it like that. Okay, and then for the font style here, I'm going to make it all caps. And that's looking good. Right, so the animation, I'm just going to add an arrow for my animation here. Okay, that's much better. Great. All right, so now that we have all this, okay, that's looking great. Let's work on the background. So I'm going to go back over here to my content area. Click on background, and we need to get rid of this and make it white. Select my white background. And now we can see our text has disappeared, but we can always go back in and fix that. So you can either add white here as the background, or you can say no to use background color. Same thing, okay, unless you need to add a specific color. Now let's go to the text and no, in fact, we need to go into design text, change it from light to dark. Okay, so now we can read it. In fact, this module that we added earlier on, we don't need that because this opt-in has this information already. So I'm going to get rid of the title and also this description. So I'm going to come back over here to my content area. And then for my fields here, I've got first name and last name activated. So I'm just going to get rid of my first name and the last name. So now the only thing I have is the email. So let's fix that. Let's add a border to that because we can't really see the border. So I'm going to click here on that little icon. And then for the border styles, we're going to add 1 pixel. Yep, I think that's fine. And the color needs to be gray. So I'm going to click here and select a light gray, just like that, because black is a bit too solid for it. Okay, I mean too dark. Right, so over here on the rounded corners, let's see what we can do with this. I'm going to activate this chain and add, let's say 20. Right, so now that I see it's working, I'm just going to make this look like a pill, just like what we have there on the subscribe button. Great, so that's looking good. Now I'm going to go to this button and change this color, the text color. So right now it's set to that, so we need a lighter color. So white works perfect for that. That's great. Okay, so what we may want to do as well is to come over here to sizing. In fact, we need to go into spacing. So we want to add padding to the top and the bottom. Like that. Then save. And then as mentioned, we need to get rid of this text here. So I'm just going to, in fact, we may need to get rid of the title itself because the description text is not a lot. So let's cut it off here. Delete all this, center it like that. So that's inline editing, okay? So I'm going to save this for now, and then I'm going to get rid of this module. So as we can see now, we have all the elements that we need for this area. Let's just take a look here and see if everything looks great. Okay, so my title here needs to be inside this white area. So let's go ahead and fix that. Okay, so all I've done is I've dragged it in. So it looks like we don't need this row. So I'm going to get rid of it just by deleting it. And then I'm going to go in and just adjust my margins and paddings. So let's start with the margins. So for the margin bottom, I'm just going to bring it down a bit. So that works fine. And then for my padding, I'm going to add some padding to the top, like that. Okay, so what I'm doing here is to just give this some breathing space, okay? Save that. Now, what we need to do as well is to make sure that the size of this is set to 70%. So I'm just going to click here, go into my design settings, sizing, make this full width, and then use custom width and set this to 70%. Because I think that's what everything else is set to. Okay, so I'm going to save this, and that is looking great. Right, so we're almost done now. So what I need to do is to now start working on the footer area. So let's go ahead and add a new section. Okay, so I'm going to go here into my expand settings, click on my wireframe mode, click this plus button, regular. And what I need here is 4 columns like that. And we are also going to need some text modules. So I'm going to select text, and then I'm going to go into my front end editor. Right, so let's start adding all our information here. So I'm going to come over here. Let's take a look. So we've got products, support, company, and so on. Right. And our background color is going to be white. Okay. In fact, let's close this, because ideally I would want these modules to come in with the default text. So again, I want to select my text module. And now I have my dummy text, which is great. So I'm just going to switch back over here and see. All right, so we got product, support, company. Right, so let's add our fake product. So this needs to be a heading. So I'm going to make this heading 3, I think. Or in fact, let's make it heading 4. So I'm going to add my tags here, that, and then we're going to call this product. That we are going to go in and customize it soon. Great, so now I can add a list of things to go onto that. So I'm just going to copy this and just separate it into imaginary links. But of course, in your case, these need to be like proper links. So what I also need to do here is to come over here to the visual, and I may want to make some bullets to this. So I'm just going to add some space between these. Right, so I'm going to choose these ones right here, and I'm just going to make sure everything is in line. Let's go on to the design. Click on a heading text. So what we need here is heading 4. Let's make sure that this is set to bold. Okay, so that's much better. And the line height on these look pretty much perfect. So I'm just going to go ahead now and save. And now it's time to copy and paste them. So I'm going to come over here, Command C on the Mac. If you're on a PC, it's Control C, and then Command or Control V to paste. Okay. And also finally over here, just like that. Right. So now all we have to do is to go in and change these titles. So I can go in now and maybe call this support. And what else can we have here? Company. That, and then here this can be our social stuff. So in fact, let me delete all this, and then we're going to call this follow us. So now all you have to do is to start adding your other modules. So I'm going to click this plus button here and add my social follow like that. And then all you have to do is to add your other networks. So I've got Facebook and Twitter already. So let me add Instagram. Go back. Let's add YouTube as a final one. Like that. Okay, so now we have 4 social icons. And just so you know, if you want to go in and add links to all these social links, all you got to do is to come over here to this gear icon, and you can add your link to your social media channel. Okay, just like that. Right, so now with that in place, all I have to do is to adjust my margins. So I'm going to go to margin. So for margin top, I can adjust it, bring it closer to the word follow us, like that. So I'm pretty much happy with this. Now I'm going to go ahead and save. Right, I really like how it looks. Now, as I said, if you want to learn how to design awesome looking websites, I have a course called Divi Blueprint 3. Pretty much it goes through everything that you need to know in Divi in order for you to find where all the tools are. And also in this course, I get to show you how to actually build a 5-page website, showing you all the tips and techniques. Now, if you buy this course, you automatically become a Divi University VIP member, which means the future course the future update to this course, you won't be paying any extra, which I think is really, really good because you're keeping up to date with the latest trends. And also I'll be updating this course every year or twice in the year. And as I did in the beginning of this tutorial, I used Photoshop. So again, Photoshop is one of those tools that you definitely need in order for you to create awesome looking websites. So again, I have a course on that. It's $97. So everything that you need is in the comments box below. This episode has been made possible by divicake.com. Check out the huge selection of Divi themes, layouts, and plugins. The link to that is in the description below. Right, so the moment of truth, I'm going to click here on exit the visual builder and we are going to take a look at the final design. So as I scroll down here, this is our design. Very clean, beautiful. Oh, in fact, you know what? The title that we have here is wrong. It's called featured products. So we need to change that to product support. So let's go ahead and do that. Awesome. So this is how you design a web page from scratch. Now, what I will be doing again in the future is finding layouts that I will be recreating in Divi. So if you like this, please add your support in the comments and please do share this tutorial with your friends or anyone that is interested in a web design. My vision is to try and build a big community of designers where we get to share ideas and I get to share my knowledge and pretty much, interact and communicate together. So I'd like to say thank you very much for staying for this long until the end of this tutorial. As I mentioned, I'll be giving this layout away for free. So I'll leave the link to that to download this layout for free and you can go ahead and use it commercially if you wanted. So that's all I have for you in today's tutorial. Thank you very much for watching and I will see you again in the next tutorial. Take care.